So let's talk a little bit more about the types of questions your prototype should be asking. Typically at the core of any business, any new product, any new service, there are a couple of fundamental assumptions that have to be true, otherwise the business or the idea won't be successful. How well do you understand your fundamental assumptions about what you're creating, and can you embody those in a way to gain confidence that your assumption is correct? Let's look at some examples. Here is an example of an assumption that is core to a business. Let's say you're in the consumer packaged goods industry and you want to create health and beauty products that have sunscreen inside of them to offer people UV protection with products they use every day, like soap or hand sanitizer or baby wipes. How might you go about testing this assumption? People will more strongly desire products that have sunscreen inside of them. Have a think about how you can do that with rapid prototyping. One of the fastest ways we can use prototypes to answer this question is by taking ordinary products off of a store shelf, like bars of soap or hand sanitizer, and slapping a fake label onto the front that says, now this product has SPF 30 in it. It doesn't even have to be our own products, it just has to be good enough to put it in the hands of a potential consumer and say, what do you think of this product with sunscreen in it? We call this method label hacking. You don't have to invent your own product in order to validate your assumption or invalidate your assumption. Sometimes you just need to put a new label on it in order to get people's input on whether or not they find that feature or benefit valuable. Here's another example. I was doing some work with a medical device company here in the Chicago area, and one of the problems that they had identified in the world of hospital and medical clinics is that when you use surface disinfectant or you use hand sanitizer, most people don't appreciate that when you first wipe that surface clean, that surface cleaner needs to dwell on that surface for a period of time before all of the microbes and bacteria are killed. Do you know how long that time is? Most people don't. It's usually about 30 seconds to a minute. And so if your instinct is to wipe down a surface and then immediately eat off of it, or hand sanitize your hands and then immediately touch your face, you're probably running the risk that there's still some live microbes on the surface before it's had time to dwell. Now, because most people have no idea how long it takes for a surface cleaner to be on a surface before something's disinfected, one of the innovators on this team came up with an idea to create a product called Chameleon, where now inside of these surface cleaners is a photosynthetic dye. And when the surface is clean after 30 seconds or 45 seconds, that dye will turn clear, and you'll know that when your hands are clear, when the surface is clear, that it's safe to use. Now, they didn't immediately go out and develop the product. They didn't immediately come up with a marketing campaign. The way they could gain confidence that this was an idea worth pursuing was simply to, with marker, draw fake labels and slap it on the outside of existing products and take it around to potential customers and infection control specialists to find out their input. And from these crude prototypes, similar to the dry erase marker and film canister that we saw in the introduction session, these were good enough to give them confidence to move on to the next step. So again, it doesn't have to even be your own product in order for you to use it as a prototype and figure out the answer to your question. Another example of an assumption is that people will place a higher value on products that are all natural and artisanal. This was the fundamental assumption of a health and beauty company that was attempting to commercialize products that were all natural and came in beautiful packages. They felt that consumers would pay premium for both the all-natural value proposition as well as something that looked unusual in a category like CPG and health and wellness. So to test these two fundamental assumptions, which frankly had to be true in order for the business to be successful, they decided to quickly prototype a couple of ideas and put them out into the world to get validation. What you see on the right is a picture of what was a sunscreen container that has a fake label on it. And on that label, they decided to put something that was just gross enough to make you think twice about whether or not you wanted to purchase it. Basil mint toothpaste. You're like, that's pretty gross, but is it? I don't know, it's all natural. And this prototype was meant to test the all natural value proposition. On the other side, you see I think it was a blush container or a makeup container that we photoshopped a fake label onto, and inside of that package put ibuprofen. something that you can find at a pharmacy for under $2 or $3. And we knew that if people found this desirable, they'd be finding it desirable because of the package, not because what was inside. What was inside was relatively inert. What they were reacting to was the embodiment of the package. Now, you might say, isn't there a little bit of risk of brand erosion if you put fake products out into the world to test whether or not people like them? What if people don't like them? Won't that cost your brand some equity? And the answer is it might, which is precisely why we created a fake company name. J. Roberts & Sons isn't a real company. These aren't real products. These are simply provocations to test whether or not people will find value in something that's all natural, and if somebody will find something that has value because it comes in beautiful packaging. But we didn't stop there. We knew that in order to test people's authentic responses, we needed to field these prototypes in an authentic environment. So we paid a couple of influential pinners on Pinterest $200 or $300 a piece to blast these renders out to their communities and say, hey, these are some new products from J. Roberts & Sons. What do you think of them? And then we watched as people pinned and repinned these things around the internet, and as they moved further and further away from that initial influencer, people started reacting to these products as though they were real products. And we learned what retail environments would people expect to find these in? How much were they willing to pay? How much were they willing to trade off their existing product to buy one of these? It got so ridiculous that at one point, one woman put something out to her Pinterest followers and said, this is my favorite kind of toothpaste. We're like, is it now? So again, these are things that look real, but they are entirely fake products that we simply photoshopped. This is a method that we call image mockups. These are renders. And with the software that most of you have on your computer, you can take an existing product and create a little bit of a change to it or a tweak to it and put those things out into the world to find out how people will react. And mocking up images like this of products can be a wonderful way to test something at scale in low fidelity. Here's another example of an assumption. The mobile game that we create will be both desirable for adults and entertaining for kids. This was the assumption of a product called Elmo's Monster Maker, where your kid, hopefully if they like Elmo, can design a Sesame Street monster and then program that monster to dance and sing and do some fun stuff to hopefully keep them entertained for at least an hour in the backseat of your car while you're running errands. It works beautifully for about 2 weeks. The origin story of Elmo's Monster Maker is even more interesting. The team that put this together is part of the IDEO Play Lab. The Play Lab is the part of IDEO that has a core competency in designing things for kids. They had this idea of creating Elmo's Monster Maker, and before a meeting with the client, realized that they didn't have anything to show the client. They were going to come in and talk about Elmo's Monster Maker without having an artifact to explain what they were trying to do. So about 45 minutes before the meeting took place, the team very quickly put together a prototype to show the Sesame Workshop team what they had in mind, and this is the prototype that they created.